everybody. Thanks for tuning in to Back History Podcast. I'm your host, Angela Buffington, and I have a special guest today, Tommy G. Hi, Tommy G. How are you?
Fine. How you doing?
I'm glad to have you on my show.
I'm glad to be here.
So tell me, how did you get into music? Tell me how you became Tommy G.
Well, first off, my name's Tom Gamez, and that's very hard to pronounce for people. So I just eventually just said, let's go by Tommy G. That's easy to remember. You know, Kenny G did it. There's a lot of other people that did it. So, hey, that makes that easy. Rolls off the tongue, you
Yes.
know. So you see me on the stage, that's Tommy G. You know, sometimes you see me out painting your house or something, that's Tom Gamez. So to start with, my mom, she was a big music buff. And then back in the 70s when they always had the radio station come around and every week they'd have a new album come out. You know, Fleetwood Mac, Peter Frampton, all that stuff. You know, everyone that come out, she'd get it. You know, so she introduced me to music that way, and was always listening to the music around the house because we was kind of the party house. Everybody come over and hung out with my mom, and we could stay there all night long. So, anyways, eventually I started trying to play a piano. My dad brought me a little organ, a little like almost a toy organ. It was plastic. You know, I was about 10 years old then, and that was my first instrument, I guess. And I picked up the little numbers and played those, you know, like Mary Had a Little Lamb and all that little stuff. And then by the time I was 13, I was going to chorus in junior high school over there at Meadowbrook Middle School. And I met a guy over there, and we started hanging out. And they had a little group of guitar players that they hung around. So I got me one of those big chromatic harmonicas, and I tried to play that with them. And I really wasn't that good at it and everything. And the name of our band was Reek, by the way, because we was always reeking. But, you know, we had a lot of fun, and we was learning like boys did back then. So anyways, I tried playing that harmonica, and one day I was sitting there and I asked the guy if I could play his guitar. And one guy, Richard Gladden, he was a real good studied guitar. He could read everything. He could just read it and look at it and play it, you know. But the other guy, he had a little classical guitar, you know, and he was just learning. But anyway, and then there was a third guy, Joe. He's the one that had the little Squire Strat or something over there. And anyway, I asked Richard if I could play his guitar, and he said, no, play Joe's guitar over there. It's a cheap guitar, you know, and everything. I picked it up, and I started playing up and down there, and I was playing some Beatles with the radio. And they didn't know how I was doing it because they couldn't play like that just by ear, you see. And I learned I could go up and down that one string and get whatever note I wanted. And I was just playing what I heard. And I realized then that I had a knack for just picking it up and playing it and then not knowing the notes because I never really learned all the notes as much as, you know, reading music and all that. You know, I did learn the chords. I had an old Mel Bay chord book, you know, and I learned my chords. And I just had a knack. I could hear something like the Pink Floyd "Wish You Were Here." I'd hear it, and I'd sit there and I'd pick it up. I'd say, "Oh, that's a G chord. It rolls right into that E minor." I didn't know it was a G and E minor at the time,
Right,
but I could
exactly,
hear
yeah.
it and feel it, you know. But anyways, I guess moving forward, when I was about 13, I guess at that same time, I got my first guitar. That my mother had a boyfriend that would come by, and he picked up stuff from the Salvation Army, and he would take donations. Sometimes he'd hold something back, and he had this little guitar, and it was a turquoise green guitar, and he didn't want to bring it over because it was so ugly. It didn't have no strings on it, and it was like over 50 years ago, but those little pegs on it, I remember, were corroded off of it, and we had to tune it with pliers if we want to tune it. And of course, I had no amp, but by the time somebody came and donated me some used strings, and we got them on there, and then we could put that guitar on a tabletop and hear the vibrations, and that's how I learned to play, was sitting there with that tabletop. And then kind of being, like I said, a dysfunctional family, my mother, she ended up having a nervous breakdown, so I ended up having to move to El Paso for a while there while she was recuperating. You know, and so there was a little bit of a learning curve over there. When I went to El Paso, there was some people over there that knew my dad, and this guy, I don't know, they thought I was a child protege, I guess.
Well, you had to be because you play by ear and you just could feel it, so you had to be.
And what they would do was they would try to stump me. You know, I was only, I guess I was maybe 14, 15. Yeah, I guess I was 15 by then. And he would say, you know, play some jazz, you know, like this key G, play jazz, and I'd play something. He's like, you know, like, how's he doing that? And then they play a rock in B or something. Anyway, I got to where I could kind of just pick up some stuff. But this guy, he thought I was so good. He had one of those big Fender amplifiers with two 15-inch JBLs. It's a dual showman, I remember, and he had this thing called an Echoplex. Led Zeppelin was famous for those, but this thing had a looper on it, it'd go around and around with that tape. And I remember I used to sit there and play for hours and hours just playing along with myself there. And I really learned a lot during that time, as far as just learning chops and making sounds and noises and stuff like that and everything. And then fast forward, I guess from there, I got a girl and we moved down here from El Paso. I guess I was 16 and she was 17. And when we got up here, I was just a straight worker. I already had a house and a car by then. I was I was renting it, but I moved out on my own. I dropped out in the 9th grade and everything. And this girl, I guess she started cheating on me and stuff and everything. And I thought, oh man, but she had left and went back to El Paso. And during that time is when I had started going out and actually experiencing going out to the clubs. And that's when I started going to Spencer's Corner.
Did you write any songs about that breakup?
Oh yeah. I got some songs. I Had to Go, it's called. There's one there. That one's an ongoing one. I wrote that so long ago, but not over just one girl, but it's a combination of many.
All right. That's what the guitar players sometimes have a lot of girlfriends. They say.
Yes. Yeah. Well, anyway, after that happened, I thought, okay, this is it. I'm heartbroken. And I started going down to Spencer's Corner, and I started dancing, and I started watching like Buddy Whittington up there with the Rio band playing, and I'd watch him, and I'd go home and I'd mimic what he was doing, and so I learned a lot that way. And before long, I had the opportunity to go sit in with a band in a club called the Spot Club in Fort Worth on Jacksboro Highway. And this happened to be a club that my dad used to go to in the day. He got beat up there one night. I didn't know that was where he was at, but he came home with blood all over his face one night. And he's telling me, and he said, yeah, that was out in the parking lot at the Spot Club. I said, that's funny. That's the first club I ever played at. But after I played with the band, it was a funny situation because they wanted me to play, and they said I was chicken because I wouldn't sit in. But the band actually, back then I didn't know that you had to have an amp that goes with a guitar. These days we know if you got this amp, you got to have a guitar. If you got another guitar, well, you got to have an amp. But just because it's two guitars on the stage doesn't mean that they're both available to play right now, And I seen the Fender Stratocaster up there, and I never played one, really, except for that little Squire guy that guy had, But I never really played a real Fender Stratocaster. I kept looking at it. I thought, well, I'll play that Strat. They said, oh no, you can't play that. And I said, well, okay. So I did try to sit in with the band, but they kind of dissed me, So I said, oh, well. Well, the manager came up later on and introduced me to him and said, this is Tom. He's going to be playing with y'all. He's going to sit in with y'all. And so they said, oh, okay. So then they said, what do you want to play? I said, well, I'll play that Fender Strat over there.
You went right back to it, huh?
Yeah. So they said, well, okay. So anyway, so that meant the other guy, he had to play acoustic now. See, I realized that later because when I got up there, they says, what do you want to play? I said, I'll just follow y'all. But rather than following them, I went into AC/DC, Shot Down in Flames. And all I remember was the guy was calling chords out from the acoustic to the bass player, like, he's a A, he's a G, he's this. And then I blacked out or something, The next thing they were tapping me on the shoulder and said, hey, we're going to take a break now. And I guess I went into the zone, man, and I don't remember anything about the time between there and there, but except for them tapping me, and whatever I did, it got that band fired. They got fired after I played with, and a guy came up and says, can you play with us? Can you get a band? I said, I don't have no band. I said, that's the first time I even played in a club. Well, anyway, the next day I went back, and I thought it was the same band. I didn't know they got fired, but they were auditioning for a singles act. So this guy, Tony Cook, came in to audition for the singles act, but he was playing a left-handed 12-string. And he had a big songbook, and he was sitting there auditioning, and he was just singing song, whatever somebody said. And somebody said, can you play Stairway to Heaven? And he said, and me and him never said two words together, but he looked over at me and said, Stairway to Heaven? I said, oh, sure, but not on an upside-down 12-string. Well, he flipped that thing over and said, oh, I don't tune it that way. I just play it that way. And so I played Stairway to Heaven, and he sang it as the first song we ever played together. A year later, we had 4 hours of original music, and we cut a little record at Summit Burnett Studios over in Dallas, and we was playing at Ardmore Convention Center for a little battle of the bands up there. And, I got the little picture with my long hair. But the thing about him was he asked me to play the bass, see? And I was a guitar player sitting there with him at first, but he said, well, if I get a bass, would you come in and play it? And I said, well, I'll try. Don't know nothing about it. He said, well, it just has less strings. So I just picked it like a guitar and played behind him. And since he was playing it upside down, I would always imagine either here I one was upside down, and then I could picture what he was doing and just follow him. So I got a knack for just following people,
So yeah, you have the gift.
Yeah. And so anyway, so that band ended up breaking up, and then I didn't do anything for quite a while. Well, then about 1988, I guess it was, I started going to church. and I played in church for 22 years. I played in church, and I didn't play any secular gigs or anything there, and then became single again. And I don't want to say I got divorced because I didn't get divorced. We separated, but we never got back together. But anyway. At that point, I started going out, and my other band, I play with another band now. I've been playing with for 30 years. I've been playing for more than 30 years with the band Sons of Thunder, my Christian band, a Christian rock band. And that band had opened up with Rusty Burns and Landon Spradlin at a benefit concert. So when Rusty Burns passed, I went to his memorial at the Keys Lounge,
Yeah, and
where I met Michelle
on that
Squire.
committee. Yeah, and I know Michelle. I know her well.
Okay, and when I met her, she said, "Oh yeah, I'm pretty good at what you call it when you stalk people. Stalk you go to Facebook and I'll stalk you or something, whatever she said." Anyway, she did, and then she posted a thing about the Texas Musicians Museum, which had the Champagne Jam, they called it back then, with Dubber back then we called him. And so when I went over there, I had this friend of mine that for a month I didn't have a place to stay, and this friend of mine, Tobiano, he did a lot of Motown. He worked with James Brown and a lot of people. But anyway, he Gibaldi, what's the guy's name? Got all the percussion in there. But anyways, he got me to stay with him for a month while I was waiting for my apartment to get ready and everything. So anyway, so I kind of felt like I owed him a favor, and then he's blind and everything. But he, this jam was over in the afternoon. I thought, well, I can go pick him up, carry him over there. We go to the jam. And it won't be one of these late night deals, And I got to carry him back to the house and all. But anyway, so we went over there, and man, that people fell in love with Tobiano. And once they did that, then I kind of got my foot in the door at the Texas Musicians Museum. And then Michelle, actually, we played with Toby for a while, and Troy Skaggs, our friend that passed away recently. What's his name, Skaggs? Troy? Yeah. Anyway, he had passed away, and he was a great bass player. But Michelle was the one that got me to the Texas Musicians, but that's where I met Aquarius from Aquarius All-Star Band. And now I've been with them for 10 years, going on 10 years now. And I thought then, I thought, well, yeah, I'll sit in or something. She asked if I could, play. Cause I think her brother was playing guitar at the time, and he had some things going on. And so I said, yeah, I'll come fill in a little bit. And it's been going on 10 years now.
That's
and
great,
we've just been through that. And like I said, through doing that, I've met you and the Trinity River Society. I get confused because I used to play with a band, the Trinity Boulevard. Trinity Boulevard, we called it, and we played at the Mission down there. We play for the homeless and I've been doing that since 1988. And all three members of the original Trinity Boulevard band passed away now. And so that's how my band Sons of Thunder came in, and now they've taken over, and we still carry on that ministry, but.
And you play with them every Sunday, or
no? I play with them every first Saturday, and we also play at Will Rogers at least 12 times a year or something like that. Every time the horse futurity comes through, we go down and we lead worship for them down there at that thing over there for the. They have two services.
So would you say that your faith is what drives you to play?
Yeah, that would be the word I'm, I guess, steering towards is where I'm at now is that, with my faith and my music, I really believe that, I think I had missed putting the part in there when I was 14 years old. I remember I would hear a lot of the, I don't want to call it satanic, but a lot of the heavy metal stuff, it just got a weird vibe to it, I don't want to say it's evil or demonic, but I always said, hey, why can't we just write some good, hard rock out of the Bible, And so now I actually have some songs that I've written that are, 30 years old, and they're just now coming to fruition. Even last night, I played one at the Mission last night, and for all the homeless guys, and they actually asked for it, They said, hey, can it play Last Chance? I said, okay. And it really speaks about what's going on in the world, right? It's like reading a newspaper, So anyway, so I feel like that if I'm writing something, I want to have something that is light, something that is, not dark and just a positive message, I've got a song I wrote called "Be Good to Your Enemy," and people talk about, you got to pay back somebody for this, and you got to pay them back for that. But it says no. If your enemy's hungry, give him something to eat. If he's thirsty, give him something to drink. But the Bible says, in doing this, you'll heap burning coals on his head. So, kill him with kindness is kind of like what that equal to. So anyway, so that's one of my songs, and I have another one called "No More Darkness" that I wrote in 1988. That was the first song I think I wrote, and that's just basically talking about no more darkness in my life. Now I'm all right. You know, I mean, and I was playing that back in bars back in 1988. The reason I named it No More Darkness is because of one of the guys that was out there drunk. He asked for it, and we had played it, and I called it. When I wrote it, it was called "I'm All Right," you know, because it says "Now I'm All Right," and so I said "I'm All Right." The name of the song. Well, this guy kept playing, "Play that song, No More Darkness." He was all, you know, and I said, "We don't have a song," and I realized he's talking about that. So I'm going to rename that song "No More Dark." He's seeing from the outside in. I'm looking from the inside out. See. And so,
So have you recorded any of these songs or in the studio?
I've got some pretty decent recording, but I need to get in the studio. See, I procrastinate. That's one of my biggest. That's the thing about Aquarius. See, she's a go getter. She
Yes,
goes out.
that's
And
true.
I am I'm like I don't want to say a hired gun, but it's kind of like I'm a parasite. I get on board and I just stay there, you know, and float around wherever it goes. You know, I'm right there, you know. But as far as getting an open door and everything, once I'm in there. You know, you can't get rid of it. But you know, but getting started, you know, I mean, I have a hard time, you know, getting gigs and getting, you know, going out and being that just gun ho about booking things, you know. So.
But you serve. That's your role. I mean, everybody has a role, you know, in the band or whatever it is. And
Right.
so Aquarius is the Swiss knife. She knows how to go get this stuff and
Yeah.
keep y'all organized and the glue, and you
Right,
just play
right.
and you know and stuff. But
Yeah, I'm trying to get more organized in that, but yeah, my procrastination, that's the biggest thing. As far as my originals and stuff, you know, that's what I always wanted to record them and get them just right, and then I'll hear them like, yeah, that's not. My biggest problem is I try to do a lot of stuff myself, you know, and if you don't collaborate with other musicians on something like that, you know, it's, you know, start sounding like one man band, you know, sometimes, you know, and you need that little extra edge from somebody else input on there.
so let me ask you about this. Since you play by ear, and some other people may play, you know, they've been taught to play and listen to music. Do you ever clash sometimes?
Oh yeah. That is my biggest issue, I believe, because I know that people that have studied that much, you know, and are like, you know, I've done all this studying, you know, and everything, and you didn't study, but you play, and there becomes this little like, you know, how do we get across this, you know? And because I'm like, you know, I like to just memorize this stuff and try to play it and everything. I got them little pads and I put it up there, and I swear, like last night I had one sitting there. I never even turned it on, you know. I mean, that's it. It's there for a crutch, but it seems like every time I start using it, I start doing this and that instead of doing this, you know. But I would like to say, I saw an interview with Jeff Beck, and they were talking to him the other day about that, and he said, if I'm not exactly what I do, he said, I'm not doing it right. You know, that was what Jeff Beck said. So I kind of thought that gave me a little bit of ease. Because I thought, well, that's what Jeff Beck said. He said, if I'm not wrecking the song and doing something wrong, you know, and that's what he would do. He would fiddle around and he would make little quirky sounds with it, and then just learn how to make, you know, some noises that most people can't make with a guitar, you know. And I guess that's where I'm at. I like to just... it's kind of like if you want to picture a scene, you know, I want to be able to be whatever kind of music, whether it's a keyboard or a guitar or you know, be able to build that music that will fill that scene, to feel that, you know, and you know, it's hard to describe it, I guess, but it's like painting a picture, I guess.
Right.
And
yeah.
so then I like to think of David Bowie. You know, he's got so many different albums. Every one is different.
Different.
That's the way I like to think. I don't like to think of it as, well, I'm this genre or that genre, but when I'm doing a certain song, I'm painting that picture. But when I move to the next one, that's going to be totally different, you know. So that's why, and even when you go to the genres, you know, people say, oh, this genre, I can't really hardly put them together. I remember playing with one band, and it was a gospel band, and he was playing some gospel blues, you know, on the piano, and I just played what I felt like I said I do, and when we got through, they just fell off the keyboard stand, rolling on the floor, laughing. I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "I was playing the blues and you playing country." I'm like, "Oh, what?" I started playing and twang. That's what I felt, you know. I didn't know I was, you know. I just, you know. So I guess I just kind of intertwine things and try to, you know, make a collage.
Well, that's
out
good.
of
That
it.
makes you you. You always have to be you. I
yeah.
tell people all the time, you have to just stay true to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Tom, you have some interesting stories, and I'm glad that you shared them with me. I'm glad that you came on this podcast. I mean, you know, and so excited. I'm, you know, excited about your faith. I'm excited that you went Aquarius in the All-Star Band.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you're welcome on this podcast anytime. Thank you for
thank
being on here.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Hi, everybody. So thank you for tuning in to Back History Podcast. My special guest was Tommy G, and he's with the Aquarius All-Star Band, and also with the, what's your other band?
Sons of Thunder.
Sons of Thunder. You can see him every...
Well, there's a YouTube channel, Sons of Thunder, Fort Worth, Sons of Thunder Band, Fort Worth, on YouTube.
Okay, so
see him
check
on
them
there.
out on YouTube. And if you'd like to become a member of Trinity River Blues Society, you can do that at trinityriverblues.org, or you can contact me at angela@trinityriver.org. We're needing volunteers, we're needing donations, sponsorships, and we're getting ready to start our North Texas Blues Challenge again. It's going to be on August the 2nd. So check us out, go onto the website and look for all of that information, and we'll see you later.